how can I put this together such that it benefits us, but it benefits them as well? Too many of us go, we want all the benefits, we don't want any responsibilities. We want to go and come like we want to, own property and do all these things, but you have to think, if you're going to be part of this country, you have to make a contribution to this country. It doesn't have to be $10,000, but it's got to be something. You know, if you're going to be in my family and you're a part of my family, you got to do something. At least make your bed, something. You can't just walk in and, you know, eat and sleep and leave and do nothing. And I think that's what too many of us forget. For example, let's say you get dual citizenship in Ghana and you have a 14-year-old son. 4 years later, he may be eligible for military service. Does he go in? Because if that's the law of the land, you're a citizen, he's supposed to go in. What if there's a conflict between the United States and an African country of which you're a dual citizen in? How does that impact your loyalty? Where is it if you haven't given it up? Now, in the past, a lot of people who become from here who've become citizens of Africa have given up their citizenship in America because they're alienated from America for whatever reason. And you can cite many of them. But many of us, even though we're not happy with the governance of our country, we realize we've invested too much through our ancestors and our own work. We don't want to give that up. We want to maintain that, but we still want to be a part of an African society. So what we're working on is a framework that has the ability for us to have a foot in both worlds, to be able to operate here and to be able to operate there and to understand our place here and there. It is legal in the United States to be a dual citizen. There are many people who are. The British have indelible citizenship. You can't lose your British citizenship, no matter what citizenship you take on. You can be an Israeli and be an American citizen easily. I worked with a man in the Congress who had worked in the Israeli Congress and who had been in the Israeli army. Now he was an American citizen. Most of the dual citizenships in America now are Mexican Americans who are now American citizens. There are Africans, of course, who become Americans, but very few African Americans who become Africans. I think the reason is it's very difficult to do it, and hardly any of us know what the process is. The other thing is, where would you become a citizen of? You know, many of us take a name because we like the name. I worked for a brother who became Kwajo Akpan. He left, he became disgruntled. He actually left and went to Ghana to live, became the chief. Kwajo is a Ghanaian name. Akpan is a Nigerian name. Whenever Nigerians or Ghanaians would hear his name, they said, well, that's strange. That's two different ethnic groups, two different countries. It's because we're picking just based on what we like, what sounds good to us, or I like the meaning of that name. But we don't really have a connection to a place. Senegal names, I'm not talking about Francois and all of that they got from the French. The Senegal names are different from a Malawi name, different from a Kenyan name, different from a Namibian name. If you know you're from Namibia, the name that you could choose for yourself would have meaning not just to you because it sounds good, but it would have meaning to the culture from which you actually come. That's what we need to do, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that a little later. 4 years ago, I was asked to work with a brother by the name of Anthony Archer, who's an attorney in California. Anthony and I worked on a paper that he produced on dual citizenship. It has 3 levels of citizenship. The first is active citizenship, which is where you actually relocate to the country and you're going to stay there. You might not give up your U.S. citizenship, but you're going to become a living, breathing part of this society from this point forward. Now, it probably would take some time for you to gain that citizenship because it's a lot more binding than any of the other forms. Most likely, you're talking about people who just want to leave America, people who are retirees and want to live in Africa because your pension will go a lot farther on the continent, believe me. Or people who have a great deal of money to invest and they want to be there to oversee their large investment. Then there's what Anthony calls passive citizenship. I think we need to think of another name for that because it doesn't quite strike me right, but we'll come up with another name for that. That's for those who want to spend part of the year on the continent. Either a teacher, for example, who spends a summer vacation in Africa, or some entrepreneur who can take time and go to Africa and stay for a while. That would involve somebody who's developed a genuine attachment to the continent and likely, like the first one, would end up with a passport to move around. The last one is the symbolic citizenship. That's for people who don't know Africa that well, but they want to. They understand that they're Togolese. They want to learn more, and they take on this level of citizenship. They may not even go to Togo initially, but they want to start that process. So they take on a symbolic citizenship. By dividing it out into different levels, it makes it more attractive for Africans who understand we're not going to flood them. We just want to be a part, a genuine part. And when we come to you, we're going to come correct. We're going to come knowing who we are, knowing who they are, knowing how we fit together. Now, I mentioned the DNA testing that's done by African Ancestry. They have the largest database of African DNA of anybody who's doing it. And there are a number of companies who are doing this now. There are 27 African countries that they've matched people with. The leading countries are Nigeria, Cameroon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. There are other matches, all the way down to Angola, Senegal, of course, Niger, other countries. 27 of them. But those are the ones that come up most. Nigeria by far, by the way. Now, as African Ancestry would tell you, when you get your DNA match, it might say that you're Fulani from northern Nigeria. Well, what they'll explain is that's where they are today. When they took that sample, that's where they are now. That's not necessarily where they were 300 years ago. So many of the ethnic groups in Africa straddle the borders because these are European borders. These are artificial borders. The Africans didn't create these borders. The Europeans back in the late 1800s created them based on what they wanted to do. Because the river was here, not there. Because the mountain was over here. They did that. So you have whole groups of people split up by an arbitrary line. And in Africa, people go back and forth across that line all the time. It doesn't mean anything. Because Uncle Kojo is over here. So I'm going to dinner over at his house this week. Next week he's coming to my house. You're going back and forth. Nobody's using the passport. Nobody's using the visa. We just go because that's my people too. Nobody says anything because they understand that. So the thing of it is that you can't get too hung up on, okay, they said, that, like a friend of mine at work is one of the ethnic groups, and you usually have more than one, by the way. One of the ethnic groups is the Bubi from Bioko Island, Equatorial Guinea.
Equatorial Guinea, I'm there. I did my African ancestry, yes.
Good for you. Some people, when they hear that they're a Bubi or some other group they've never heard of, yes. I don't want to be that.
Bye-bye, bye-bye, people.
Oprah Winfrey wanted to be a Zulu so bad. She was disappointed when she found out that she was actually from Liberia. So she said, "Bump that, I'm going to build this school down in South Africa because I feel like I'm a Zulu." Well, if you find out, like Isaiah Washington, that you're a Mende from Sierra Leone, you don't have to get citizenship in Sierra Leone if you don't want to. Go to Senegal if that's really where you want to go. If that's where your heart is, go there. This just tells you where your family are now. Back then, they might have been in Senegal. So by all means, go. Do what you feel that you want to do. If being a Bubi is going to interfere with you, now this sister's happy to be a Bubi. But if you're not stuck. You know, I myself am adopted. So I was a Williams. My family's a Williams. But now I'm in the Simpkins family. I consider myself a real Simpkins. Now I don't really know the Williams because my birth mother's dead now. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is what family you want to be in. And if you want to be in Ghana, be in Ghana. Even if it says you're in Guinea-Bissau. The thing is, we have this program of dual citizenship that we are hoping to take to the embassies in the next few weeks. We want them to take it to their governments. We want them over the